Joe Girardi in his new position as the URI Assistant Director for Community Standards.
Thank you very much. So my name is Joe Girardi. I've been involved at URI for about 10 years. First, I managed their ice arena on campus, and then prior to taking this role 8 months ago, I managed the Student Center in the Memorial Union, and I'm also a certified crowd manager in case you need one for today. So I took this position 8 months ago, and what I can say is I really enjoy it because one of the things I value is having quality informed conversations with students about being good role models, being good citizens both on and off campus. So we have community standards folks who not only enforce community behavior on campus but off campus. My role extends outside of the residence halls and beyond. So whether it's down the line in Narragansett, South Kingstown, students studying abroad in New Zealand or Australia, we get reports, we take action. So the primary part of my job is student conduct. So that Monday morning, as Dean mentioned, we get police reports, we call students in, we investigate to find out what took place. And so what I wanted to do is kind of walk you through our student conduct process. And so we get the police reports, students are named in those reports, we reach out to those students, we bring them in, we have an informal conversation to find out what happened, and then from that conversation, we then determine whether they violated our community standards policy. Again, Dean and his folks, they're holding students accountable for violating town ordinances, violating the law. We're holding students accountable for violating community standards. And so if students are found in violation of community standards, then they will be charged with the appropriate violation and issued a sanction. So to kind of give you an idea of a most basic first offense example, if there's a student who gets cited for underage transportation of alcohol and it's their first offense, then typically they're getting a fine through the town and having to go through that process. In our process, what it typically looks like for a first offense is a monetary fine. They would be placed on disciplinary probation for 2 semesters, and they would have to go through they would take a survey and then go through some alcohol education. And so as Dean mentioned, we do a lot of outreach and education when students violate community standards, but also before that, and I'll get to that in a second. So these students, when they come in and talk to us, they do have their right to due process. And if we issue a charge, they have the right to respond to the charge, whether they accept it or they deny it. And if they choose to accept it, then the process continues and they go through the educational programming, pay their fines, and they will be on probation. If the student chooses to deny a charge, then they will go through the formal student conduct process. They will have to demonstrate why they feel they have not violated the community standards. Our off-campus jurisdiction policy states in it that students, if they violate, if they get in trouble off campus, that their actions off campus could have an impact as if they were a student on campus. So that's just kind of a general overview of the student conduct process. I also oversee our commuter affairs office, which is geared toward connecting students to the community. So we host a off-campus housing database where students can go and look for housing. So a lot of landlords tend to post their properties on our website. It's $60 for a 6-month time frame to post your property, but our website is really geared toward information, communicating information from town ordinances to the Rhode Island landlord-tenant policies and handbook. We also have a off-campus living guide, which really talks and speaks to being a good neighbor, engaging in positive behaviors, and being a good role model in the community. And so the off-campus database, the off-campus website has a lot of good information, and I encourage you to go to that website, look at the information, and if there's something missing, please reach out to me and my student staff, and we can get that information out there. As far as proactive education, we do, this coming Wednesday, we do have an off-campus housing fair where we'll be doing some education for students, but it's an opportunity for a lot of the rental agencies in the community to meet students who are getting ready to move off campus. What I will be doing as part of my role is actually going out into the residence halls, primarily with freshman, sophomore students, and talking to them about engaging in good behavior when they choose to move off campus. And again, if you have questions, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And if you have suggestions on what we can do further in part of our outreach, we'd love to be a part of it. And I know there was a mention about some of the social media communication that's been done. One of my roles is to improve that as well, so that we can help communicate the town information to the student population. So sometimes it's a lot of kind of cross communication, but hopefully between one of the different mediums, we can get to the students so that they have a good quality of life in Narragansett and also treat their neighbors in the town with respect.
Next, we have Jennifer Bergeron from Liberty Mutual.
Unlike everyone else, I am not long-winded. I'm very brief and to the point. So I work at Liberty Mutual. My name is Jennifer Bergeron. I have been with Liberty for 27 years. We offer an array of personal lines insurance, auto, homeowners, umbrella, landlord coverage. My one takeaway for all of you is if you do not have liability insurance or umbrella insurance, is you definitely want to look into that. It's not an expensive coverage and definitely worth a little help you sleep at night for sure. As far as some questions that were posed to me earlier for email was about coastal properties and not being able to get insurance in this area. There are many companies that would be able to help you. I know the FAIR Plan is one, and those policies are, we don't represent the FAIR Plan, unfortunately, we're a direct writer, but the FAIR Plan has a very good policy and the prices are reasonable. Anyone that we cannot help directly, we do try to find, we have someone that we refer to in the area in Wakefield that can help most of those that are not qualifying with us. I don't know if there are any other questions, but you know.
We do have some.
Okay.
And if you have more, again, please put them on.
Perfect. Thanks.
Next, we have Mr. Santilli, our building inspector.
My name is Tony Santilli. I've been the building official in the town of Narragansett for approximately 22 years. So I've been dealing with the rental houses as well as Dean for a long time. My office basically runs the rental registration program. We have approximately 2,740 rentals in town. We generate approximately $232,000 at $85 per unit. The revenue from the program funds the secretary in my office, the rental registration clerk, 2 part-time community housing officers, and a police officer. So that money is going to good use. As everyone knows, that revenue must stay within the program. We basically look for, you know, if we receive a complaint on a dwelling, I get this question all the time, can't you just go into the dwelling? And you can't do that. People have rights, civil rights. When we go to a dwelling, we have to get in. It's just like a police officer walking into a dwelling. We have to tell the occupants whatever we see can be used, you know, in municipal court to prosecute you. So we have, you know, people have rights. I mean, there's a lot of people in Narragansett who complain about, you know, the program and complain you're not doing this, you're not doing that. We can only do so much. You can't, you can't beat a dog to death. Yet there's a lot of houses in town that are grandfathered in that were built prior to any building code. Oh, they have 6 bedrooms, they don't have this, they don't have that. We have to go back into the history file to see how many bedrooms there are in accordance with parking. But you can't, you know, a new dwelling, let's say a new dwelling, you need like 200 square feet per bedroom for that dwelling, not including the garage. A lot of times realtors will come in on the sale of a house and they'll say, well, there's 4 bedrooms. Well, we only permitted 3, so then we have to go back in to see when these dwellings were built, if they had to have egress windows, etc., smoke detectors, whether they're hardwired or battery operated, if they were built before a certain date. I believe it's 76. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. We take a lot of people to municipal court who do not pay the rental registration fee and for minimum housing violations if they do not comply with us. Right now the fine is pretty steep, $300. Pam and I are trying to work with the council on that to reduce that fine. I think it's a little steep. Basically, when we go into dwellings, we look for egress windows as violations, bedrooms that have to be 70 square feet, parking, posting of ordinances, trash. We have Dave Green and Bob Breyer handling trash, high grass. We have ticket booklets. Now, these ticket booklets that we have, we can give the person on site a ticket for trash, being a non-registered rental, high grass, and other violations. I think the fire marshal checked, Dave and the chief talked about the smoke detectors. Unsafe decks is another problem that we have. We cannot go to dwellings and check every deck. The homeowners have to take that upon themselves to check their decks, to make sure they're lagged in, make sure the post is safe. I have a handout that I will give you, Ray. You can probably make copies and pass it out to everyone. In my opinion, the rental registration program has come a long way. I think that we have knocked out a lot of problems in town, and I think it's about 90% of the problems. But some people in town, they want to wipe every rental house out of town, which is, it's not going to happen. And there's 3 unrelated. Why aren't you enforcing that? That was overturned in 1994, I believe, by Judge Fortunato. I had approximately 15 court cases before municipal court, and the previous solicitor said you can't enforce it. You have to just dispose of those court cases. Another concern that I have with this 3 unrelated, let's say that they go back to court or they change it to 5 unrelated or 4 unrelated. What's going to happen to people who are grandfathered in that already have 7 bedrooms in a house? But I believe the program is working, and with your continued support and help, I think we can work together and make it even better. Thank you.
I'm going to add one thing on a state level with regard to rental registration. If you are an out-of-state landlord, you need to go to the ri.gov website and register your homes with the state of Rhode Island that you are an out-of-state landlord. So make sure you're doing that as well. Next, we're going to have John Kenyon.
Good afternoon. I'm John Kenyon. I'm a partner in the law firm of Kenyon Law Associates. Our office is located right up the hill here. And Lisa must have read my mind, because that was the first item I was going to address. I was asked to speak about some of the main issues with evictions, and mostly non-payment evictions. And the first item I was going to talk about is I handed out some information, including Rhode Island General Law Section 34-18-22.3, which is the Non-Resident Landlord Act. And as Lisa stated, you must file a designated agent with the town, but you also must do that with the Secretary of State. With the rental registration program, that's done for you, so that complies with the requirement. However, and I also submitted the actual form from the Secretary of State, which you can fill out online or you can mail that in. It's no cost. It goes into a database, and that's one of the first things. If you appear before a judge for an eviction and they see that your address is out of state, he's going to look to see if you've complied. He can go right online and see if he's done that. And the way the statute works, it says if you haven't complied, that rent abates, which means no rent's due up until that time period. You can't evict for non-payment, and the matter will be dismissed. There are some judges who believe that that also means you may owe the tenant back any rent that paid while you hadn't filed. I've never tried that, but that's been indicated before. The second issue is accepting last month's rent. And most leases say that the tenants pay the first month, last month, and a security deposit. I've handed out sections of Rhode Island General Law 34-18-19, which talks about security deposit. And in that, it says you can only collect 1 month rent of security deposits. I don't think that means you can't collect the last month's rent. However, it doesn't matter what I think. The chief judge of the district court has issued an order that if you've collected last month's rent and you're into the eviction process, they will apply that to whatever rent is due. So the notices will be invalid and they'll dismiss the matter immediately. So you can collect the last month's rent, just know that if you do that and you go to evict somebody, it's most likely going to get dismissed. The last issue is the 5-day demand notice, and this is probably the issue that I see come up most. To start the process, you have to send a 5-day demand notice when the tenant's 15 days in arrears. It has to be a full 15 days in arrears. I'd say 50% of the notices I get are dated October 15th, December 15th, and that's a day early. And that's the first thing a judge will look at. A judge will look at that date. If it's dated the 15th, he's going to dismiss it, and you're going to have to start all over again. So these are just a couple items that if you address them up front, it will save you some time and money, not having to start all over again. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
And while we're collecting the questions, I'm going to have Paul Beauclair speak to it as well.
Except not over there.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Beauclair. I've been a police officer for 15 years with Narragansett. Last year, I took the position as community police officer to assist with the ongoing problem with URI students and rentals and so forth. As the chief was saying, every Monday, I review all the reports from the week, arrest reports, noise complaints. I print anything URI or college-related up, and I hand deliver it to Joe's office there. And then prior to that, David Green and I go to every house that we had a substantial noise complaint from the previous week, and we pay them a visit in the morning. Whether they get an orange sticker or not, we still visit them, and we still have 20 minutes of conversation of what they can do to be better renters, better students, and to live more respectfully in the neighborhood. And, last year, we started this program, and our noise complaints went down over 200 from the previous year. We wrote 54 orange stickers last year. We only went back to 2 of those houses, so I would say that the program's working, and we're trying every week to make a difference and giving our best. We have good feedback from the kids are actually doing really well as far as feedback with us, and we've got pretty good relationships with them.
So I'm just going to stand over here. I've kind of organized the questions based on the speaker, and I'll address the speaker with the questions. So Pam, with regards to the fine for disturbing the peace as it applies to all renters, not just student renters, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and with regards to parking and blocking neighbors' driveways, I'm going to say that's probably Tony's question.
I think it's either Jean or it's Tony.
If they're blocking a neighbor's driveway and they're in the public right-of-way, I would say they would have to call the
Can
police.
you hear him?
I'm not sure about that. I think that's more Dean. I think they would, if the car is blocking, that's a public safety issue. They'd have to call a tow truck if it's in the right-of-way.
Yeah, if it's in the town right away, it's on a paved surface, we will try to contact or find who the owner of the vehicle is. We run the registration, we'll knock on doors in the surrounding homes to try to find it first. If not, we can call a tow truck. The problem is if that vehicle is in that private driveway and not on a town-owned road surface, we cannot tow it. You have every right to tow a vehicle off your property. You call a tow company, they tow it, they hold the vehicle until the owner shows up, the owner of the vehicle pays the fine. But we can't tow off private property unless it's directly related to a crime, something that we're investigating and we have a right to tow it.
Can I say one thing? Very important too. What the first question was, does this apply to all rentals in the town, not just student? And the answer is unqualifiedly yes. A lot of people, when they talk, when they stand up and speak, say, I have never rented to students. I only rent to adults, or I only rent to year-round adults. Doesn't matter. All that we have talked about is applied to the entire town uniformly. Correct, yes.
And one other recommendation, I believe this came on the same card, was that is there or there is a need for a list of the rules so that the landlords can post them in their homes? So does that exist? Where does it exist, and or how can they get that?
I've got with me things that Tony Santilli has given me since I've started. These are the ordinances. Now look at this. There's no list of, these are the ordinances. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. So I don't know if there's a simple answer. Have you ever seen anything produced that will very simply put in front of these people what to call?
We actually have many houses, and O'Brien's really good at it. It's one of the, when we go to these houses, we ask, and even the night patrols, when we go to these parties, we ask to see a copy of the lease. And there's a town ordinance that requires that the copy of the lease be made available, posted inside the door upon request of a police, building, or fire official. And that lease will have everybody's name on it. But also with that lease, in a lot of these houses, we'll have the ordinance, the main ordinances as far as the nuisance, social host, trash. A lot of these people, they should have it, but most of them don't have it, is what I want to say. Some of these kids can produce it, but we've been finding this year, Dave and I have noticed it's become a problem where a lot of kids don't. And, you know, if you read the fine line, it comes back to the homeowner to be responsible for that. And some of these kids are like, oh, they didn't give it to us. It should be there in a folder posted on the back of the door. And if they did that, it would be great for us because then we know everybody that lived in that house. And it would help us in our job and help URI to know everybody who's residing in that house. But some of the houses do have it. I don't know the percentage or how many, but if everybody had them, it would be so much easier.
The magnet that was just produced by this group, and I worked with George, sent me a draft, I sent him back some information. That's a good start, and we have them, we're handing them out as we visit. That's a good start to have on the refrigerator, something visible for the kids. I mean, they can't miss it, it's yellow. Whether they use it as a Frisbee or not, or whatever, it's at least you've made the effort and you put it there.
Sure. Can I use that? Yeah. I have one list here that just lists the violations that may or may not apply to tenants. Conduct endangering another, conduct endangering a property of another, fighting, endangering lawful movement, obstructing vehicular or pedestrian traffic, disturbing the peace, urinating or defecating in public, littering, disturbing public meetings, throwing missiles. That's what happened in that riot of May 2014. Failure to disperse when they're told to. Sleeping in public places, firearms prohibited, consumption of alcoholic beverages, smoking tobacco products prohibited, unlawful possession, consumption host, unlawful possession, consumption minor, permit to possess kegs, motorized devices, public nuisance, pub crawls. It's only a beginning, so there's no easy answer to this. I'll work with Tony and Dean and see if there's anything that we can put, because I understand your pain. I mean, this is a lot of that could affect your tenants. Just what I just read is, it's an amazing amount of literature.